All right, well, President Obama is announcing he will use his executive authority to offer close to 5 million undocumented immigrants temporary protection from deportation. The order would cover some parents of U.S. citizens and legal permanent residents. It's estimated there are 150,000 undocumented immigrants here in Michigan. And while many people can agree the immigration system has serious flaws, Republicans are furious with the president's decision to do this through executive authority, something even the president said he may not have the power to do last year. Now, first off, executive authority has been used by other presidents, Republicans as well, regarding immigration. So, Nolan, I'm going to start with you. Why is this different?
Well, you know, it'll be up for the courts to decide whether he has this authority or not. It's certainly a larger use of executive power than's been done in terms of immigration. But the last two presidents have so expanded the power of that office at the expense of the legislative branch. It's something that Congress should be worried about, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, because as we know, as we're seeing in the Senate now, you change rules, they stay changed, whether you're in the minority or the majority. My bigger issue here is the tone of this. It's this post-election tone the president has struck to say, hey, in your face, I'm going to get my agenda done whether you like it or not. And by the way, I got 2 years left. I'm going to veer hard to the left. There was an opportunity here, and I think the American people would have responded well to it if both the congressional leaders and the president said, look, you know, here we are. Voters rejected your agenda. They expect us to not go hard right. Voters want to get things done. Let's work on a few things that we can agree on and establish a conciliatory tone, because in 2 years, if they don't, they're going to throw the Republicans out just like they threw the Democrats out. Both sides have incentives here to try and find some common ground, and the president struck a tone of there is no common ground.
Before we actually discuss the immigration issue, which is actually very, very important, let's talk, Stephen, about the fact that the president is going ahead with this. Could this lead to some kind of skirmish with Republicans, or we could be looking at some kind of government shutdown? Is the politics of this going to take over more than the issue of this?
I'd be shocked if we saw a government shutdown. That would be suicide, political suicide. For Republicans, they would be blamed for it, and we would be on the road, to a very, very different 2016 than they're already looking at. I'm not entirely comfortable with the breadth of executive power that this president and like Nolan said, the previous president and even Bill Clinton have sort of appropriated for themselves, and I think there is a showdown coming at some point about that. The Constitution does give the president a lot of latitude over certain areas. I think we have seen an incredible creep in those areas over time, and this is a pretty big infringement, I think, on the process. At the same time, this is a president who has tried to move this issue through for 3 years, and it's almost like you can't get Congress to say what they want. First, it was lead on this. So he tried to do that, and they didn't want to do what he wanted to do. So he said, I'm going to take myself out of the process. He stayed out of it and let Congress do it on their own. You got an immigration bill through the Senate. The House won't take it up. So I think at some point he's like, and then they're blaming him and saying, well, now you're not leading on it.
Steve, that's the tension the Constitution builds in between the various branches, and you can't allow frustration to say, I agree with that. I'm going to ignore the Constitution. I disagree that the president has tried to work with Congress and is willing to work now. I think he's completely unwilling.
He did on this issue initially.
I think you're going to see in these last 2 years a very hard ideological left turn. We've seen it already, with his focus so intensely early on with climate change in these last few weeks. I don't think there's any middle ground he sees here. It's just going to be push to left, and I think he damages the Democrats' chances in 2016.
But is what he is doing with immigration reform in protecting these 5 million undocumented immigrants in the country from being deported, is this the right step that we should be doing in terms of immigration reform?
There's no question. This is not about amnesty. This is not about putting people on public assistance roles. This is about giving people who are already working, frankly, the legal infrastructure they need to pay taxes, to be a part of the system as opposed to being outside it. This is a no-brainer, and this is one of the things that I think is very frustrating about this Congress. they have been working on this for 3 years and couldn't even come up with this as a solution. I don't think there's a good reason that this is
look,
not done.
We've got a new Senate coming in place, a lot of new members who were elected because people were frustrated with the gridlock. Why not give that new Senate a chance to get in place and then take some reasonable immigration policy to it and say, let's work together, rather than say, oh gosh, you either pass it or I'm going to sign it, and then 3 days later, you know, sign the thing. I don't think he's really given the new Congress, and it will be a new Congress.
It will be a new Congress.
And I don't think he's really given that Congress a chance to work with him.
Well, let me ask you, Stephen, about how this impacts Michigan. As I said at the beginning of the topic, that we have 150,000 undocumented immigrants here in the state. I mean, this is also an economic driver as well that the governor has tried to capitalize on as well.
Is absolutely on board with these changes, and he's right. This is a big part of moving our economy ahead. I mean, if you were to, at the national level, factor in some sort of expansion of immigration and legalization of the people who are here, there's estimated that we would add almost 2 points to the GDP each year. These are crucial economic issues. We are locking an incredible amount of our population out of the economic recovery that could be just because we don't like them or we don't like the way they came here.
Well, it's the latter. I think it's the fact that the legal aspect of it, and you know, we do have a respect for law in this country, and an understanding
when we want to,
and an understanding that, you know, we can't just show up in England and plant ourselves. And I mean, every other country enforces their immigration rules and their borders. There's nothing wrong with that, but we have a problem here we have to address. I question the urgency with the pretended urgency. These 5 million aren't in danger of being deported. We haven't been deporting them. If it were so urgent, the president could have taken this up in his first year, his second year, when he had control of Congress. There's time to work with Congress on reasonable reform that includes more visa for high-skilled immigrants, which is a critical need, and just takes it in a more comprehensive issue, finds the common ground here, because I do believe both sides have an interest in fixing this.
All right, last word on this, Stephen.
I mean, I think this is, you know, prelude to some. I think one of the things that could happen is, you know, pushing it on this small step will loosen up some of the issue in the new Congress and get them to deal with, you know, that visa issue, the amnesty issue, which is still hanging out there. I'm not necessarily in favor of the process here. I think that's a problem, but this is gonna, I hope, move us forward on immigration.